Welcome to the Strategic Committee meeting for July, and I hope you're all enjoying the weather. It's not too hot, but there's a tap out there with plenty of water in if you need to go and get some, so just help yourself. Right, before we get into the meeting, a few pointers I have to run through, which I will do, so just bear with me, it has to be done. And I know it's got to be read out. As you all know, that I am Tony Locke, Councillor Tony Locke, and I chair this strategic committee. So today's meeting will be run using the webcasting system via Microsoft Teams committee members, and key officers are physically present in the room. I would like to make sure that everyone is welcome to the meeting, including members of the public, if there are any, and other members. Other elected members, members of the public and officers may physically or remotely join the meeting to speak on specific agenda items or observe. The agenda pack is available via ModGov or directly from the council website from the link which has been sent out to members. When you are invited to speak, please could you speak clearly into the microphone and state who you are for the benefit of anybody who is listening to the meeting so they can identify who is speaking. Please remember to turn off your microphones and cameras when not speaking, apart from myself. That will apply to. For those who wish to see subtitles, there is a facility in MS Teams under the ellipse button called Turn on Live Captions, which provides subtitles for the screen. Please be advised that the meeting is being audio/video recorded. As the agendas are now viewed electronically, could I kindly request that members and officers, and we don't tend to do this anywhere near enough, refer to page numbers from the published agenda pack to assist all present in finding the appropriate information. Finally, there are no planned fire drills today, and in the event of a fire alarm, please follow the fire exit signs and congregate outside. If anybody present might need assistance in exiting the building, then please let one of the Democratic Services team know. Thank you very much. We will move into the agenda. And one, apologies for absence. I have got in front of me apologies from Councillors Michael Dunk, Councillors Gwyl Wren, and Councillor Edric Hobbs.
Chair, may I interrupt and just say that Councillor Dunk is online. He's attending online. He's feeling well enough to do so.
He is now good. I believe he had a dentist appointment and he didn't know how he'd feel. Yeah, so that's fine. So welcome, Michael, and welcome anybody else online. Item 2 on the agenda, minutes of the previous meetings held on the 16th of September 24 and the 17th of March 25. Are there any which need signing? No, all been signed up.
Sorry, Chair, they're being brought to be passed by the committee.
They are?
Yeah.
Being brought. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Everyone in agreement? Seems so long ago, doesn't it? Right, item 3, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest from members regarding any matters on the agenda, and to specify the nature of that interest? Are there any items of interest? Additional interest? None. Item 4, public question time. No public questions, no one in the room? No, anyone online? No. No. Right. If we have no one there, we will move straight on to item 5 on the agenda, which is the quarterly report on planning service performance, quarter 4, January to March, 24 to 25. pages 29 to 80. And I would then invite Alison Bloom Cooper to present the report. Welcome, Alison.
Thank you, Chair. I think this slide. My mic's working. Okay. So the fact that it's red's okay, is it? Okay. Thank you, Chair. I'll start again. And thank you, Helen, for putting the presentation up. This, members, is the regular quarterly report on planning service performance, which is brought to you on a quarterly basis, as you know. So this covers the period up to the end of March 2025. And the reason for that is that MHCLG published the statistics in arrears. So we've just got the published statistics at the end of June. So this is the most up-to-date publicly available information. I'll go to the next slide. This report includes the information and the volume of work that's being received by each of the area teams and the waste and minerals teams, and reports the national published information, but it also includes some additional information, particularly around enforcement. And for the first time, you will also see there's information relating to ombudsman complaints, complaints to the service more generally, and also member inquiries. And I will also touch on some of the actions that we're taking in order to reduce the amount of work in progress. Slide. So I will run through details of the planning application profile that we've received by area since 2022-23 and give you the overall picture. Sorry, Simon. I don't think the microphones are, that's fine. I don't think the microphones are working, unfortunately. I'll try and shout. It also covers pre-application inquiries, appeal decisions, and enforcement cases. Okay, slide. So this shows the profile of applications we've received by quarter from the period. And I know you won't be able to read the figures at the bottom of that table, but you'll see that they are contained in the main report that you have in front of you. And I'm just trying to find the relevant. Maybe they're not in, they're in the appendix. Helen will tell me which page they are shortly. So what it does show, however, is that the number of applications that we've got in the system, and this is only a snapshot of what we've got because it's only the ones that are reported nationally. What it does show is that we have a decreasing number of applications actually in the system at the moment. So although the volume of work is still far too high, we have reduced the backlog somewhat since vesting day. Next slide. And that just shows you more clearly. So we've got about 1,600 applications which are in the system across all of the area teams. And we're receiving about 900 each quarter and determining about 900 each quarter. So it is going down slightly, although we've had an upturn in applications for the period from January to March. I'm not quite sure what that is. And that's one of the issues that we have, is that we don't know exactly what's going to come through the door at any one time. We're subject to the vagaries of the market to some extent, and what is coming forward. We are very conscious that that workload figure is too high, and we are about to put in place measures to reduce that to a more manageable work in progress. Next slide. So this just shows you the major, minor and other applications which have been determined within the national targets. As members are aware, we have to report to MHCLG on a quarterly basis as to whether or not we're meeting the nationally set targets. And this shows that we are overall meeting all three targets. Now, obviously, that doesn't take account of the problem of how much work in progress we've got. but does mean that we are meeting the national targets. Next slide. And that's just showing the performance in a different way. The MHCLG also measure over an eight quarter period overall performance as part of a quality indicator, and that just shows that we are within the tolerance of that. If we weren't within the tolerance, we would be liable to be designated. And that just shows you the figures that they use for that purpose. So there are two measures. One is timeliness and the other is appeal performance, in order to decide whether or not to designate authorities. If an authority is designated, it means that applicants can choose to apply direct to the Planning Inspectorate for their application to be determined. Just to give you a bit of a snapshot of other work which is within the system, which is not captured by those national statistics, this just shows you the volume of pre-application inquiries by area. Sorry, Matt, did you have a question?
You to give us the well done, the page reference on in our agenda regarding the charts that you've got, if you have them, so that we can follow along. You're trying to do it over there. All right, not to worry. Well, this presentation is appendix 1, is it? Yeah. That's fine. Thank you very much. That's okay. In appendix 1. Oh, yeah. Smashing. Thank you.
Trying to see who. Councillor Dunk, have you got a question, Mike?
Thank you, Chair.
I don't want to interrupt the presentation. I mean, is it possible for you to note your
Yes.
note your question and note your page number and then do it at the
Absolutely.
end, or
Thank you,
not?
Chair. I'll do that. Cheers.
Thank you very much, Michael.
Of pre-application inquiries. Next slide. And this shows you also the number of appeals. This is just the ones on which we have received decisions up until the end of March 2025. And that just shows you the trend of appeals on the graph on the right-hand side. This gives the picture of enforcement cases, and as reported to full council yesterday, we currently have 873 cases on hand. We have dealt with a similar number of cases, and you'll see that the number of investigations and the number of cases closed. I think that information is also in the report, but not on. Don't know that it's on the slide. Sorry. There you are, it is on the slide. So we can see that over the past year, we've closed about the same number of complaints as the numbers on hand. So as we've indicated, there is a backlog in the planning service, which is not reflected in the national statistics that are reported. We do have on hand at the end of Q4 about twice as many applications as we're receiving. And that means that there is a lot of failure demand in the system. And as that has led to a lot of complaints, not just from members, but also from applicants and members of the public. So we have been putting in place a number of measures to try and reduce that work in progress. One of which is to try and understand the total volume of work that we've got across the service. Because although we've got those national statistics, we haven't been able to extract from it all the other applications which are not covered by that. So tree applications, discharge of condition applications, and the prior approvals are not picked up in those statistics. So there's a large number of applications and work in the system that's not captured by that. So what we're trying to do is to understand what the total volume is and to try and understand what the blockages are to moving those forward. And we are aware that there are a number of issues, not just caused by the planning service per se, but also because we're dependent on statutory consultees and other consultees. Some are within the council, some are outside the council. So we are trying to put in measures in order to increase the work going through the service. We have been successful in adding some additional temporary staff to try and help bring the working process closer to steady flow levels. And we're obviously looking to get into balance the number of applications received and determined each quarter, and also to bring that figure down at the bottom of work in hand to about the same number or below if we can. There has been an increased focus on recruiting and retaining permanent staff. Unfortunately, our last attempt at recruiting permanent staff was not successful. So I have prepared a business case to try and put in recruitment allowances in order to advertise those posts at a competitive salary. And we're hoping that that will be in place very shortly. And as I said, we're putting in place measures to understand the blockages, not just within the service, but also across the council and with our statutory consultees, and trying to streamline and put efficiency measures in place. So that's the end of the presentation. I haven't reported to you again on or put up slides on 5-year housing land supply because it hasn't changed from the position that was reported to you last quarter, or the figures on the housing delivery test, which we also have to report nationally. In your report, but not in the slides, you'll see for the first time we've reported on ombudsman complaints and other complaints and member inquiries. And it's clear that those have been increasing over the last few months. We've got the figures for that from April to June. Unfortunately, because the iCase system wasn't fully integrated until April this year, we aren't able to provide the information going back prior to April of this year. So it's not easy for us to see what the trend is, but we are looking to see how we can also streamline that process. In terms of ombudsman complaints, it's interesting to note that although there have been a number of ombudsman complaints, most of those have not been upheld by the ombudsman. I don't think, Chair, it's probably best just to take questions now rather than to comment further.
Okay, Alison, thank you for your report. What I'm going to do before I go to members, seeing as how there was one person online who I said I would come to save it to the end of the presentation, I'm going to take him first, and that's Councillor Michael Dunk.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, the pre-app inquiries for the area south were notably a lot higher.
Could I ask you to note the page number and everything for members present? And could I also ask Democratic Services in the future to make sure any reports being presented at the committee that there are pages of the specific items on the reports are noted to members in the room on the committee to assist?
Sorry, Chair, I can't give you that because obviously it's quite hard to cross-reference the two documents. But I think members may remember that the pre-app inquiries for Area South were triple in some cases the amount of the other areas, and I just wondered what they were doing that set them apart to achieve that level of pre-app inquiries, and what the benefits may or may not be. And just a very quick rider as well, I would say that the Mendip East area affordability ratio for housing is also a lot higher, well, considerably higher, I would say, than the average of 1.74. It's actually 2.03, which means that our housing is more expensive, and I think many people would recognise that. But I just wondered when it will be the time for Frome to recognise that in its affordable housing ratio, which is only 30% at the moment, and whether that is at all being considered to be changed in the near future. Thank you.
Okay.
Um,
Thank you for that, Michael.
Okay,
Alison?
Councillor Dunk, the pre-application information is on page 56 of the agenda, and it's chart it's table 12 and chart 17. And as you rightly say, that the number of pre-application inquiries in Area South is higher. That is largely because it's a bigger geographical area, and they historically receive more planning applications than any of the other areas, and therefore more pre-application inquiries. Your comments about housing and affordability ratio and policy is something for the local plan. It isn't really for this meeting on performance.
Sorry, I just thought I'd chuck it in there, but thanks.
Hard luck, sorry. Councillor Reid.
Thank you, Chair. Wes Reid, Yeovil West. With reference to page 29, I think Alison's probably already partly answered this, but a little bit of clarity. I was surprised to see the major applications have such huge apologies, figures, in effect that east to north, for example, is almost 40% difference. Now, looking back to, I don't have the figures in front of me, but going back to a couple terms back, in effect, really, we had huge issues then. I'm taking it's probably staffing, recruitment issues, but I mean, if I can just have a bit of clarity, because obviously the others fall in between. I was expecting these figures to be a little bit closer on this until I read this agenda. Thank you.
We receive a relatively small proportion of major applications compared to other types of applications. That means that one or two can make quite a big difference in percentage points. So that's probably why you've seen a variation, because if you only have in a quarter, you only determine, say, 10 major applications, you know, if you know, each one of those is therefore equivalent to 10%, so it can make a big difference in terms of the figures.
Okay, Wes, thank you. Any other questions from members of the committee? Martin? Sorry, Martin.
Thank you very much, Chair. I was drawn in this report to paragraph 14, really, on page 30, which is sort of explaining the reasons for delays, etc. And having heard Alison's report, it always surprises me that we managed to satisfy the national targets. We do it. We've had this report in various forms the last 2 years or something, and we managed to, which is excellent, well done, because we don't want to be taken over, do we? But are we sacrificing other parts of the service just to meet these national targets? Because the failures elsewhere are quite extreme, and that's one question. The other thing I thought of trying to read through this report, which is very detailed, is that it really, when bottom line, it's all down to money again, always is, isn't it? And is the planning service, which is a statutory service of this council, and also a money earning, one of the few money earning services of this council, it doesn't seem to me that it is being properly funded by the council to fulfil its duties on all its duties, not just the national targets, but all the other planning parts we have to deal with. And I think we as a committee ought to be going back to the executive and saying that the planning service has been, quite frankly, I think, underfunded, and rather since the start of the council, rather a Cinderella service in some respects, because of course, for no fault of anyone's, it's because we've had this forced system of various councils, the old councils, the old district councils, and they've rather been left to soldier on, it would appear to me. And the difficulty, and a great difficulty for the planning service, is trying to get this all together. And I think we failed, frankly. And what I would like to see, Chairman, is to go back to the executive and to council and get so that this service is correctly budgeted for. Because, quite frankly, we have this report every time we have a meeting. And it's always much the same. It's always saying we've fulfilled national targets, but we're not doing too well on the rest of them. In fact, we're doing pretty badly on the rest of them. So that would be my idea. And then the question after all that is do we just have to, because we have to fulfill these national targets, is there too much emphasis on that, and the rest of the service is being allowed to frankly fail? Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. I'm sure Alison will come back in where she can and answer that. But you're right. Everything you have said is obviously recorded today, and you know, and can be minuted. And it's not the first time this committee have said raised concerns about the planning and the overall delivery of it. Irrespective of what area, you know, we was referring to at that particular moment in time. But I was saying, with the briefing next week, with the planning sort of update for all members, it's going to be interesting what is said then, because that might highlight a lot of the problems which you have said about here today. But I can't preempt that because I don't know. I haven't been informed of what that is. But some of the points you've raised, I'll ask Alison if she can answer some of them for you. Thank you.
So a large reason why we meet the national targets is because, like most authorities, we use extensions of time. So when things can't be determined within the 8 or the 13-week period, we negotiate with the applicants an extension of time. As long as you make a decision within that agreed extension of time, then it counts as meeting the targets. So the government are currently consulting on removing the ability to use extensions of time, and obviously that will change the complexity. So obviously we're very alive to that, and that's why we want to get the volume of work that we've got down so that it's a manageable level, so that we can deal with things within that timely approach. In terms of staffing, we currently have, as I said, some additional temporary staff to try and help us remove the backlog, but it is true to say that the permanent establishment is lower in terms of number of case officers than we had prior to vesting day, if you take the number of officers across the council. And we've particularly lost resource in our, what I would describe as specialist services, so that's urban design, trees, landscape, and so on. And I know, and you know, the ecology service particularly has also suffered in terms of not just numbers of staff, but also being able to attract and recruit to fill the posts. And that's been a large part of our problem.
And presumably, going back to the financial side of things, the main reason we can't attract staff is because we're not paying them what they can get elsewhere. Would that be a fair resume over that?
Yes, that would be a fair resume, and that's why, as I said, I've submitted a business case to try and make our salaries competitive, but I'm still waiting to hear the outcome.
Thank you, Martin. Matt, would you like to ask your question?
Thank you, Chair. Yes. Alison's actually covered the greater part of it, but I just wanted to say to Martin, Councillor Wale, that I entirely agree with and sympathise with everything that you said. And I just wanted to assure you that we are addressing that. So there's a group of us chairs and vice chairs that meet. In fact, we'll meet again tomorrow. And this is an active topic of conversation. And it is being addressed not only from an administrative point of view, but also politically. And those of us on both sides of the aisle are looking at this very problem, and we are fighting for it. So I just wanted to assure you that we are addressing it. I promise you that. Thank you.
Councillor Ham?
Thank you, Chair. I tend to agree with what Martin Wells said and Matt Martin. And obviously there's a problem because we get the same sort of situations every meeting we have about, you know, there's a lack of staff, we're not meeting targets. Our pills are too high. The pills are too high. And obviously there's a problem. We know there's a problem. The staff's the problem. But the real problem is the problem is not being managed. And by that, I mean, I've got 2 or 3 cases, which I was dealing with yesterday and the day before. And they've been promised that they would get a result of whether they were going to be approved or not. For probably the last 2 months, week by week. I sent an email in day before yesterday, and I was told there will still be weeks. Yet the applicants have been told that they would know at the end of the next week. But this is not good enough. It's not the fact that they've been refused, and it's not the fact that they've been approved. The fact that the applicant doesn't know. In both these cases, marriages are on the line, businesses are on the line. And it's just not good. They're being told basically lies. Because Alison said that they are being asked if they can have extensions. Well, these 2 cases have not had any asking of an extension at all. We're now in the week 24 weeks since the application went in.
Without going into specific details of applications, it's reoccurring too often, and it doesn't, and Alison has to come back here and report it to us, and it would appear comments are falling on deaf ears somewhere along the line. I think that's one way of just summing it up at this moment. Yeah, I personally think next week's going to be interesting because, it all hinges around money and the cost of things and that. And it's no one particular officer. They can only work with the tools they've got. And I just want to make that clear from the chair and from the members' point of view that we're not blaming anyone, Alison, on that particular score. But it cannot be an easy task.
Chair, it isn't, and I think part of the issue that we've got at the moment is that inquiries are not necessarily going to one central place. They're coming into all different places, so we have no way of tracking what inquiries have been made and where they've been made. So we're trying to put in place a system so that we can have a central point and that we can track inquiries and complaints that are being made. Because at the moment, Councillor Ham, I don't think I'm aware of the ones that you're talking about. I'm sure that you've written to somebody, but I don't know where they've got to, unfortunately. So if you want to forward them on, I will certainly pick them up for you.
Thank you for that, Alison. Any more members in the room of the committee wish to ask anything on there? Is there anyone online who wishes to ask a question? Sorry, was it off?
Yeah.
Oh, is there anybody online who would like to ask the officer a question at this moment in time on her report?
No, thank you, not from me.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Right, I will ask members of the committee to refer to page 27. Item 3 is the recommendation that this committee, the Strategic Planning Committee, is asked to note the content of this report. And I think it's safe to say that members of the committee will note the contents of this report, but we are not happy with it and the continual reoccurrence of a lot of the same themes there, which seems to be falling on deaf ears for one reason or another. Now, is that a fair assumption or is that not?
I think that's fair, Chair, within the constraints of the material they've got currently to work with, which we will address.
So just a quick show of hands, members, you're happy that we note it? Yeah. But I said it's a big but. Right. Right. Okay. Now, before we move on to the next one, does anyone need a quick comfort break or are you happy to move? Mike? No, Mike, I know he wants a quick Could I just ask for just the time it takes to walk there and more or less walk back?
Chair, while we're waiting for Councillor Caswell to keep us all hanging on, don't worry about us, Mike. You'll be all right. You just carry on.
It's all right. Nothing will be discussed. You carry on, Mike.
While we're waiting for our friend, I note that I've earlier in the meeting seconded the approval of the minutes from March, but it occurs to me that I wasn't actually in the room for the March meeting, so I can't approve them, so you'll have to get somebody else. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Matt. Okay, I'll just. Okay, we will move on to item 6 on the agenda, rights of way review. Page 79 on what I've got in front of me, so I hope it's 79 with you good folks. Now, before we go into the report, I will say that I will let the officer do the report, Peter Hobley. And I know Councillor Hobhouse will want to speak on this, and it will be purely on the item which we have in front of us. And before I go to committee members, after the report, if that's all right with legal, I will let Councillor Hobhouse have his 3 minutes to say, or 3.5, whatever, to what he wants to say. And then before we go into a debate with members. Okay, Councillor. Over to you, Peter.
Thank you, Chair. Afternoon, committee. So the paper before you, as you're probably aware already, that there was a request from the Constitution and Governance Committee for a light touch review of the Planning Committee terms of reference. Those terms of reference do relate to rights of way matters as well, which come before the Strategic Planning Committee. Prior to that request, there was also been a request for consideration of a rights of way subcommittee. And at the last Constitution and Governance Committee, a referral was made to this Strategic Planning Committee that the review of the rights of way elements of the committee terms of reference for planning should be referred to this committee for consideration. So what the paper recommends today is that the way of tackling that referral would be to set up a small working group of members of the committee, lead members, and 2 other non-committee members to discuss elements of the rights of way within the terms of reference for the planning committees. Specifically within that, 3 aspects: the viability of a subcommittee for rights of way matters, public speaking time as part of determining any matters that come to a committee, and also training for members of the Strategic Planning Committee. So that is effectively the recommendation that's before the committee to consider in terms of how that referral from the Constitution and Governance Committee is handled. And that's pretty much the extent of it, I'm afraid. It's quite a short and sweet report today, perhaps in contrast to usual rights of way reports. So yes, it's to the committee to consider whether they wish to support the recommendation for the initiation of a small working group. It's recommended that there's 4 members of the actual Strategic Planning Committee, lead members, and 2 non-committee members. I have had a late suggestion from the shadow lead member for Transport and Waste as to whether they could be invited to that working group as well for input. So again, that's a late consideration perhaps for the committee to consider as part of the recommendation.
Thank you for that, Peter. Thank you for that. Councillor Hobhouse, do you like to address?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All I ask is this committee to please put in place the recommendations from Peter Hobley, as that will allow us to look at how we govern rights of way, which are not a planning issue, as has been brought up on 3 occasions at previous meetings. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Hobhouse. Right, members of the committee. I will throw it open. Martin and then Mike.
Thank you, Martin Weld, Shard North. I'm somewhat confused here again, as in the last item, really, as to the purpose of this subcommittee? Is it so that this committee doesn't deal with rights of way? It is dealt with elsewhere. Because that seems to be the role of councillors in rights of way, is to sit on the applications for that come up every now and again. And so is the purpose of this working group to change the constitution so that the rights of way hearings are taken somewhere else? Is that what is intended? I mean, other than that, because I don't know when the last time we as councillors dealt with a rights of way of this committee was some meetings ago, frankly. I can't remember what it was. I know there's a big backlog of hundreds. We all know about that. But is it that this committee isn't capable of dealing with these rights of way, or the councils here aren't trained sufficient to deal with rights of way? So is that the purpose of this subgroup? Because I can't really see it, frankly. I thought with the ones we do get every now and again, we deal with quite adequately and very lengthily, I might add, and successfully. And I'm confused as why we want a subcommittee group or whatever it's called to review what's being done currently. Thank you.
Thank you. Peter, do you like to, I'd like you to answer as we go, please.
Okay, yeah, if I may, Chair. So just to clarify, the recommendation is to set up a working group which would consider the viability of a subcommittee. If a subcommittee was to be set up, then that subcommittee would be looking at the rights of way items that currently come to the Strategic Planning Committee. But it's for the working group to decide how the terms of reference might be amended. Well, the recommendation is for the working group to debate that and discuss and come back to the committee with any recommendations in relation to that.
Yeah, I was just going to reiterate on what the last comment Peter just made. So the working group will go away and review it, as in what a planning working group would have done with the planning terms of reference. The rights of way part of it has been delegated to this committee to take away. So the rights of way, the working group would review the need for a subcommittee. But what they would do is prepare a report to come back to this committee, and it would then be your decision whether you go with that working group's recommendations or against it. So it's just looking at the possibility of setting up a subcommittee to deal with rights of way.
Well, to me, that seems to be making work, but we'll come back to that in a minute.
Thank you, Chairman Committee. I've had thoughts very similar to my friend opposite. I can't see why this committee can't handle the rights of way issues. This committee, we've all been chained. We've all sat in this room and another room. I remember being lectured for the best part of a day on rights of ways and things like that. It seems to be that we're just making more work. So what they do, the Right to Way Committee go off and do this, and they come back and make a recommendation, and then we recommend it, whatever. The simple truth is the matter, it's another level of bureaucracy, and we don't need it. This committee is cancelled regularly on a regular basis, and if we can't do the work within that time, then there's no hope for us. If the rights of way came forward with more, we wouldn't cancel this meeting, and it would go on quite quickly, and we would get the backlog done. So I'm not in favour of another subgroup, so to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. curious situation. Once again, I entirely agree with Councillor Whale. I mean, me and Martin are going to have to swap places at some point. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're joining together. It's yeah, we are. I entirely agree with both of my colleagues' comments on this. But I mean, the confusion that Councillor Whale spoke about. If I could just read to the gallery point 2, and I quote: alongside the review of the Planning Committee terms of reference, which relate to rights of way items for the Strategic Planning Committee, there has been a request to investigate the possibility to establish a separate rights of way subcommittee. Now, I know you believe you understand what you think I said, but I'm not sure you realise that what you heard is not what I meant, which is broadly what exactly what my colleagues have mentioned here. I entirely agree with. This seems to be an unnecessary level of complexity and bureaucracy in a system that we all know. Everybody sitting around this table is an experienced planner, every man Jack. We all know how it works. We've all done it for a while. We can deal with rights of way issues when they come up once in a blue moon. And I'm afraid I just don't agree with the idea of having a subcommittee that deals with whether we should have a subcommittee or not. And yeah. That's all. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Simon Coles, Taunton East. Rights of way is an important function that this committee deals with. I wonder whether we're missing something. What is the reasoning behind the desire to see if there is an appetite for a subcommittee of this committee to look at rights of way? We look at rights of way. What is the advantage? What are we trying to do with having a subcommittee specifically for rights of way that we don't do now? What's the advantage to us, to the authority, to the members of the public that are seeking rights of way clarification? Am I missing something? Because if I am, perhaps Mr. Hobby can tell me what it is I'm missing, because I'm a little concerned that we're asking the question: should we have a subcommittee to look at whether there should be another layer, another set of meetings? But we haven't had a rights of way application to a strategic committee for a number of months. I think it's 5 meetings. I might be wrong. I'm perfectly happy for somebody to correct me, but you know, it's a number of meetings. We haven't had one. So where's the necessity for a rights of way subsection? If I'm missing something, I'm sure somebody can tell me, but I'm a little confused as to why we need one. Perhaps Mr. Hobby, you can tell me.
Can you add anything to that, Peter? Because
I can try. So just to clarify, I think it would be for the working group to debate in more detail about whether there's a need or not for a subcommittee. So that's not necessarily for here today, but I think one of the concerns that has been raised as part of the request was around the limitations on speaking time in particular, and whether that could be addressed through the establishment of a subcommittee, or equally looking at the existing planning committee terms of reference in relation to speaking time for rights of way items. So those are the sorts of things that could be debated as part of that working group.
Yeah, certainly.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to ask legal then, if the issue is specific to rights of way and the amount of time people can, speakers can address the committee, because they are quite complicated sometimes, rights of way. There's quite a lot of information to take in. That's without a doubt. The site visits are complicated. The history is complex and requires a lot of officer time to prepare the reports. So if we are saying, unlike a ordinary, and there's no such thing as an ordinary planning application, but unlike an ordinary application, rights of way have a special place in our heart and need a longer debate time and longer input from public speakers or interested parties. If we are saying that, then I would have thought, and please legal tell me if I'm wrong, I would have thought that the way to deal with that would be to say, look at the Constitution, and if it is desirous that we have extra time for specifically rights of way applications, that we change the Constitution so that a rights of way application, instead of it being 3 minutes per public speaker and a maximum of 5 public speakers, it is whatever we decide it should be. Let's say double it to 6 minutes. I mean, I'm just plot that number out there. It's not a serious suggestion at this stage. Is that what the subcommittee, working group subcommittee, is trying to achieve, or or is my suggestion too simple to be useful?
No, so Councillor Coles, so you're looking at whether a working group set up, and that will deal with things like, or look at the terms of reference as they are at the moment, along with, is there the necessity for a subcommittee to do to make decisions on this? So the terms of reference in respect of rights of way will be looked at. So those things like the time allowed for speaking on these issues. So and if amendments will be suggested from this working group, and they would come back to yourselves, along with the possibility of the what do we call it then? Subcommittee, sorry. I'm not sure, Peter might be able to help in more detail, whether it comes as a whole package, whether you would look at some of the terms of reference and whether you would be asked for a vote on those things, or whether it comes with, we need a subcommittee and they will do these things later. Oh, Claire can help on that.
So, so basically this working group would work in the same way as what the other planning committee review would have done, in the fact it will go away, we'll set up a couple of meetings, and we will discuss options for the rights of way section of the terms of reference. So it would cover things like how long you give speakers. It would cover whether we need a separate subcommittee to make rights of way, whether it stays with strategic planning committee. It would discuss all different options for the rights of way. And what would then happen, somebody would probably write a report on behalf of the working group, which would then come back to this committee, making lots of recommendations from that review. So it would recommend, for example, we propose that you'll give speakers 5 minutes each instead of 3. We propose that there is a need for a separate subcommittee, or they could even go, we've reviewed the request and actually we deem there isn't a need for a separate subcommittee. And in that report would be lots of different recommendations for you to decide on, which would then go back to Constitution and Governance for them to adopt, well, not adopt, for them to consider and then approve to full council for adoption to go into the Constitution in terms of reference. Does that help?
No, it's Barry next.
Barry to come in. Barry, Councillor Clark.
Councillor Coles has touched on he used the word.
Can you speak? Or hold it up there.
Councillor Coles he used the word necessity for determining, is there a necessity for determining this rights of way business? They have been to this committee before. Rights of ways have been discussed in great length. I'm not sure the result was what everybody wanted, but they were discussed in great detail and they were very professionally presented. And I wonder if the business of the subgroup could be discussed at Constitution and Governance. That could be discussed in the Constitution and Governance working group. It doesn't need to have a separate group looking at, shall we have another group? that form part of the constitution or part of the planning committee. And I just wonder, is this actually being driven by something that's happened in the past that has really truly offended somebody? Or have we got really wrong? And I would ask Mr. Hobley, can he give us an instance of where this has all gone wrong and what has driven this process? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for
I'm aware there's cases that we bring to the committee where whether it be supporters or objectors feel perhaps they haven't had enough public speaking time to get their points across, or enough member speaking time. Beyond that, the request that's driving this is the referral from the Constitution and Governance Committee to this committee to request this committee to review the rights of way elements of the planning committee terms of reference. So it's for this committee to consider the recommendation as to how you deal with that referral.
Okay, thank you for that. All right, Barry, or do you want to come back?
Sorry. It's to summarise what Mr. Hobley has just said. The only issue, real issue, appears to be people feel they've not been given enough time to speak. I feel that sometimes at every planning meeting we go to. I could go on and on. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Right. Councillor Dunk, we got you down. I've got you down and I know you're waiting, but I've got others in the room that were here present at the meeting to speak, and I will do them first and then come back to you. Right, I'm going to go to Councillor Salton, my vice chair, please.
Thank you, Chair. Sat here and listened to this, I'm bewildered, absolutely bewildered by this. I mean, you could make a comedy sketch out of this. It'd be great on television. It really would. Do we have a working group to decide whether we have a subcommittee, which is made up of members of this committee plus extra members of the committee? So what's so special about a subcommittee that can do what we have been doing? If it's a training issue, let's get some training on board. What hasn't been mentioned here, and I refer to the earlier arguments, and Alison's gone now, but we're stretched for planners, we're stretched for finance, and we're looking at setting up another set of chairs, vice chairs, officers, officer time to do what we're already doing. I'm absolutely, honestly, this is bonkers. I'm absolutely bewildered by this and somewhat annoyed. I'm sorry. I just don't get it. I really don't get it. Sorry, but that's, I am sorry.
Please.
I just want to go over again. So so you're being asked, the recommendation is to set up this working group. The working group's not just looking at whether a subcommittee is required. It's also looking at the terms of reference. So like Claire explained, so the working group will look at the terms of reference and then make those decisions and make those recommendations back to you. Yes, it's felt a subcommittee is required. No, it's not required, but we do need to change the terms of reference to say, you know, we've picked up on, because I think it's an easy one to pick up on in here for this purpose, the time. So that needs to be changed. And then that goes through the process of the change that's required. So this recommendation isn't just for the looking at a subcommittee. That's a step further on. This is looking at the working group to discuss that issue and the terms of reference.
Councillor Salton.
Again, I'm wondering, sorry, thank you, Chair. I'm wondering the drivers for this. I see no credible driver for a working party to discuss this. If it is an issue of speaking time, surely that can go to Constitution and Governance to change that specific aspect, as we've done in the past. It was changed in the past to bring minerals back to this committee, where it was put out to the area committees, and it came back to this committee because that was the right thing to do. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Can I ask on the legalities? I know, because I know councillor Hobhouse put his hand up to come back in. Is he allowed to come back in with the terms of reference of this meeting? Yes or no?
That would be under your discretion.
Councillor Coates.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, the main bit of contention here appears to be whether or not we should consider additional time for particular types of application, i.e. rights of way. I have yet to meet a planning agent, an applicant, or a developer that would not like additional time for their special case, because every single one of their planning applications is special to them. Now, when we got to vesting day, we had to set a new set of rules for all the various committees, and they were set up as they were. Now, I'm perfectly prepared to accept that some of those might need tinkering with the edges, and there may well be an argument for additional time for specifically rights of way. I'm not utterly convinced of that, and I think we are just trying to make another set of meetings to satisfy something that we do always anyway, and I'm really not at all sure that's a useful useful use of our time, as collectively or individually. I can't see it. Nobody's telling me what it is I'm missing, so I can only presume from that I'm not actually missing anything. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that, Simon. Henry, I'm going to come.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
If you could keep it short, please.
I'm not going to spend long. The last two applications that came in front of this committee, I think there may have been one other, were both in my division. The first one concerned settlement. Now, Mr. Chairman allowed me to speak for longer than 3 minutes by about half a minute at the time. We were not able to get the argument across, and I had a solicitor sat beside me, Sarah Wakefield, in the time that we were given to discuss it. Now, the problem you have is you are a planning committee, and I have absolutely no argument about that at all. Rights of way are not a planning issue, which is why the Constitution and Governance Committee asked you to look at it, because it is totally different. And this is the only council around here that doesn't have a subcommittee. North Somerset, Bristol, Devon and Dorset all have subcommittees for the reasons that I've already given to you. Now, if you want to say that people can come back when they're doing a rights of way application to talk about the legal problems with settlement, which is twofold, I don't have an argument about it. But if you're actually saying you can sit and do the planning rules on rights of way, that is where I have a problem. Because the planning rules, you don't need to come back. There are no laws that are completely separate from what you're trying to discuss with the planning. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Martin, you wanted to come back in.
Yeah, I think we've slightly sidetracked ourselves here on this time matter. Yes, it may be looked at, but that's not what we've been asked to look at. And what we've asked to do is set up a subgroup. And quite frankly, I think it's a red herring. Let's face it, any licensing, planning, all the types of legal duties which we take have got a time set to them, and quite rightly too, otherwise we'd be there for days. And I don't think rights of way is any different. They may have old laws from 1500 and something to look at and all the rest of it, but you can't have say, well, they've got to have more time. I disagree with that totally. I don't think it's what we're being asked to consider today. And I think
you are correct. We're not being asked.
Yes, thank you. So on that fact, could I perhaps? Oh, have you? Okay. I was just going to say I would like to recommend and request that we. Yeah.
Councillor Dunk.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to Because the licensing was mentioned in the last couple of
We
minutes
will
of
stick
debate
to
there.
the right, we will stick to the item on the agenda
Yes,
and
but
not deviate.
but
I know
wanted
how
to.
you try to slide round the corners and round the bends and
No, it's actually very relevant, because the thing is about licensing is they regularly have subcommittees which are formed in order to decide a particular item, and that could be what this is being aimed at. I'm not sure whether that's the intention, that we go down that road, but I suppose what it.
Can I interject from the chair? I believe that is a totally different role as someone who has
It
sat
is,
on
it is,
licensing
but
subcommittees.
my point
It
is not the fact that
it
it's
is
in
totally
any
different.
way conquerable, but the point is a smaller subcommittee is formed to decide something which can be decided, and I'm not quite sure how they set up their terms of reference, but it involves less councillors from this committee. I think for licensing, for instance, is only 3, which is a very small number, but I don't know. Maybe
can we stick to this committee and
yes, but
I
it's
don't
all
any
it's
reference
all
to any other committee. Have you got a question for the officer on the question that we're dealing with, which is the setting up of a subcommittee to deal with the item number
right.
6?
Well,
yes or
perhaps
no?
I could ask the officer if that's an option for the subcommittee that we would set up to decide. Would there be potential for a smaller subcommittee formed from members of this committee to be set up whenever
No,
there's
it would not be. The legal officer has just said no. We've got the she's going to
So- come in now. I just want to, your terminology, we're not looking at a subcommittee today. We're looking at a working group that looks at the terms of reference and looks at the viability of the possibility of having a subcommittee that would then make those decisions. But that would be a recommendation that's brought back to this committee with all the details that the working group have worked through to look at the best way going forwards.
So your answer is more or less yes. They could have that as an option
Can I
and bring
just
it back
say,
to this committee.
not having a debate with yourself and the legal officer. The legal officer
Sorry.
has just explained to you, Mike. And
Okay, I think we
okay.
all understood that.
yeah. Read.
Thank you, Chair. Wes Reedy over West. Nothing's convinced me in the last 20 minutes listening to this conversation, really, that this is really viable. In 2 words, I could probably sum it up. It's a bit like work creation, I think, really. That's my opinion. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that. Right,
Do you want to come back, Matt?
Matt, have you
Yeah.
got anything new?
Um,
Well, before you do make a proposal, I would like to speak. No, carry on.
Thank you. I just wanted to comment on, with regard to Councillor Hobhouse, I entirely sympathise with the points raised by Councillor Hobhouse, and I really do sympathise with the problem. Would it not be more cogent, I suppose, to skirt around this whole idea and change the terms of reference to this committee to give the chair the leeway to grant extra time if you wanted to, rather than have it, at the moment we're in a committee discussing whether we want to have a private meeting to create a new subcommittee, which will then report back to this committee. It does seem like a solution in search of a problem, and I really can't support it, but I do entirely sympathise with Councillor Hobhouse.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that, Matt. Briefly,
Yeah.
Councillor Saunton is the last one. I will be speaking and I will be looking for a proposal or recommendation.
Thank you, Chair. The thing that really concerns me that we are looking at setting up a working group to look at ultimately setting up, and that's part of the process of that working group, to set up a subcommittee. What bothers me about the subcommittee is that they will be looking at some items, fewer amount of people looking at a specific item and then making a recommendation. I don't like the fact that that will be debated by a smaller group of people than this committee. That's my fundamental objection to that.
Right, from the chair, I've listening to, I think everyone has spoken more or less on this particular subject. And we've heard today with the first report on here, how everything with planning is geared on officer time, the pound sign and everything else. And to cut it short, this is just another level, as a lot of you have pointed out, which is going to take valuable officer time and costs. I mean, perhaps we ought to have been listening to the respective officers when they have been making their recommendations. I'm not referring to this committee, I mean possibly elsewhere in the council, on what is needed to deliver what is a statutory service, which the planning is, you know, for our residents. And I can just see us making further problems for ourselves with less resources. With that said, Martin, you adding anything new, or are you making a proposal? Right, if you were, I'm asking for a proposal and a seconder
right.
for this item now.
I'd like to propose that the Strategic Planning Committee rejects the proposals for the right-of-way working group. Full stop.
Yeah, okay, what I said was, could the legal officer please just clarify to members of the committee exactly what they voted for, and that this proposal is not carried forward any further apart from the items which have been mentioned about time for speaking.
So it was to reject the proposal for the right of way working group. I think that was it generally. Yeah.
Yeah, these might be, does it work anyway? Oh, sorry, apologise online. Yeah, thank you for your attendance. Good night, afternoon, Simon. And thank you for your attendance at the meeting. But I can't assure you, when you say we've been a bit sparse with applications.
Yeah.
That we will be having some applications.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Chair, just interjecting. There was a problem with the minutes of the last meeting. Councillor Martin said he couldn't second it, so you need to get another seconder. So Andy Soughton seconded it.
Councillor Thornton.
Yeah, sorry, it was, if anyone missed that, it was because Councillor Martin wasn't actually at the one of the meetings that to which he'd agreed the minutes. So Andy Soughton, well, oh, can somebody check that he was here as well, please?
It was held down Bridgewater.
To be clear, you don't actually need to be present. You're just approving the accuracy of the minutes. So we have signed minutes off from former councils where people weren't councillors at the time, so you can sign it off.
Yeah,